Hello, friends. Hello, and welcome to the moon video for the Cancer new moon happening on June 25th, 2025. And if you are feeling, a bit stressed with everything going on in the world, yet you're also feeling like perhaps you're getting a sense of the meaning behind all of this, like why all of this is happening. Congratulations. You're definitely feeling the energies of the Cancer new moon. And when I felt it intuitively, the theme that I was given for this new moon is reach for your higher perspective. And this new moon is really an invitation for us to open ourselves a little bit, take a little bit of a wider viewpoint of everything that's happening. Maybe not zoom into the tiniest detail, but instead zoom out, get a better view, and open ourselves up both to greater meaning and also to the miracles that can happen when we allow ourselves to change our minds or open to a new perception, open to a new perspective. So, while this is a Cancer new moon, while all new moons are a great time for setting intentions, this new moon is also a really, really powerful time for gaining meaning and just a wider perspective of everything that's happening in the world. And I think that's something that we could all use in this now moment.
Mhm.
So I know Sarah had mentioned that the astrology also really matches what I intuited. So we'll get into that in just a moment. But let's just talk a little bit about Cancer energy, because we're also in Cancer season now, which starts with the summer solstice on the 20th, I believe. Was it the 20th or the 21st, Sarah? I'm forgetting.
I always get this confusing.
I think it's the
I have to
20th.
look at mine. It is the 20th.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So summer solstice is always the beginning of Cancer season as well. Cancer is the cardinal water sign. Cardinal signs always start us on solstices or equinoxes because they are those cardinal signs, so the start of the season. Cancer is so well known for being caring, nurturing, compassionate. She's literally the mother archetype of the zodiac. She's also known for being highly intuitive, highly emotional. Cancer is ruled by the moon. Probably going to be, I mean, listen, I think all the water signs get known for being emotional, but I would go ahead and wager that Cancer might be the most volatile with the emotions because of the way that she's ruled by the moon. And the moon changes every 2.5 to 3 days, changes signs every 2.5 to 3 days. I am a Cancer sun. I am a Cancer rising. I am a Cancer Venus. Emotional volatility is like something I've had to become very comfortable with in my life. And in fact, the emotional volatility I've experienced in my life is what got me to become a moon messenger. It's literally what led me into working with the moon because once I understood that that's actually not a bad thing, that's how I'm meant to be, because I understood the moon, it was so empowering for me. And now here I am doing what I do, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, on the light side, Cancer is so known for her nurturing, for her intuition, for her emotional intelligence, for the way she cares for others. On the shadow side, Cancer is known to be a little bit protective. I mean, she's represented by the crab. So when, backed into a corner or feeling very defensive, Cancer will also pinch. Yes, she will. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. You can just ask my husband or my kids. Yeah, I will. Um, And also Cancer. This is actually really surprising to me because this wasn't something that I really felt in my own resonance until recently. But Cancer is actually known to be one of the most tribal or nationalistic signs
Yeah.
as well. And I remember hearing that and being like, "What? I do not feel like that. I don't even like waving a flag for like any nation. Like I'm like, go Team Earth." Um, but
Right.
also
But
what
yeah, right.
yeah,
Well, Cancer is about the home. And
right.
so, you
Yes.
want to protect your home, which to a lot of people is, the country that they live
Right,
in.
right. So that's
Especially,
or the
yeah, go ahead.
tribe or their people. So
Right.
it makes sense. And we have to understand Cancer's nationalism or tribalism is coming specifically from that. Like just what you said, it's coming from that protection. Usually that only really comes up when Cancer is in the shadow into a corner feeling really defensive. And then with that ferocity, that like mothering ferocity that Cancer has, it's like, you're not going to touch mine. Like these are, like I'm going to protect me and mine. That's a very Cancer energy as
Right.
well.
And although Cancer is a cardinal sign, it does give me fixed energy a little bit because it
Mm,
wants to stick to what's comfortable.
yeah.
Because that's what's in our home is often comfortable to us. And so it
Yes.
wants to protect that and stay there. So just there is that stubbornness a little bit that can come with Cancer as well too.
I don't feel called out at all. What are
I
you
saw your
talking
face.
about? Me with my Cancer everything and my Taurus moon.
Right.
Yeah, gosh, getting out of the comfort zone has been a struggle for me lately.
Right.
Like really, because yeah, I would agree with that. Another thing with Cancer, Cancer is so amazing at loving on other people, sharing compassion, non-judgment, like so nurturing.
Yeah.
It is much harder for Cancer to turn that on to themselves.
Yes.
Much harder. That is literally like my Chiron right there in so
Yeah.
many ways. Like
Like it's a
such a
way
life
to escape taking care of yourself is by taking
taking care
care
of
of
other people.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
so that is literally one of the major lessons that Cancer energy has, which is learn how to turn that love you so generously give to others onto yourself as well. And what's really interesting about Cancer, just talking about like that protection energy, when we think about Cancer energy and how intuitive Cancer energy is, all water signs are known to be quite intuitive. Water is the element of intuition, so that makes sense. But Cancer is known to be quite intuitive as well. But from what I understand, part of the reason Cancer is so intuitive is because of hypervigilance.
Yeah.
We really crave safety.
Yeah.
It's a core value of Cancer energy.
Right.
And a lot of energy, but Cancer energy is with that mothering, safety for their children, safety for their home, right? Like it's such a core value. And because of that, there's this kind of like, are we safe? Are we safe? There's this vigilance that Cancer energy has where they're constantly always reading the energy all around to ensure that they are safe and theirs are safe. And yes, that can lead to intuition. One of the things we know that about intuition is the flip side of the coin of intuition is anxiety.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Cancer energy epitomizes that very well.
Yes. Yes. As someone with a Cancer dad, I can attest to that.
As someone who is Cancer, who is an intuitive, I can attest to that as well.
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like there's no good or bad about everything. It just kind of
Is,
think all these different sides come with it that either feel comfortable or maybe not so comfortable depending on how you deal with it or how used to it you are and things like that. Some people, like you said, you get very comfortable with your emotional side, whereas other people may not have had the space to develop that,
yeah,
and so it feels really uncomfortable.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. And for those of us who've got a lot of Cancer energy, who might be very familiar with both the feelings of anxiety as well as intuition, please know that like when you're feeling anxious, it's also a sign of how intuitive you are.
Yeah.
And if you can take some moments to get really grounded, get present, you can usually flip that anxiety back into intuitive guidance. But it
Yeah.
does require often some movement, some presence, to get
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
I would say one of my most intuitive phases, it was also my most anxious phase. So like it wasn't like, oh, I'm not intuitive because I'm too anxious. Like they were together. So sometimes it is like that, and sometimes it's just like both all at once, my thoughts and intuition coming in
Yeah.
hot, which is which.
Yeah. I find that when my intuition is on, but so is my anxiety, I have a harder time listening to my intuition because I get really doubtful of it in those moments because the anxiety just makes me doubtful to begin with?
Yeah, very true.
So, but yes, I do think you can feel both at the same time too.
Which is a whole nother game.
Totally. Exactly. Exactly. So that's just a little bit about Cancer energy. Um, when I felt it intuitively to the energies of this new moon, it was pretty cool. I actually got the sensation of like flying high over a scene. Like I was literally like soaring over everything, looking down, which was how I knew that this new moon, this lunation, really gives us this gift of a higher perception of zooming out and taking kind of like that bird's eye view of everything that's going on. But you had mentioned, Sarah, that astrologically this makes sense as well. So what's some of the astrology that points to that same sense of like zooming out, getting a greater meaning, a higher perspective.
Yeah, so there's a few things happening, but pertaining to that specifically, is that this moon is only 1 degree away from Jupiter. So in the chart of this new moon, I would consider that conjunct for sure. And when Jupiter becomes conjunct with another planet or a luminary, it brings expansion into the mix. Jupiter represents like what literally what you said, like kind of this bigger purpose,
Yeah.
um, and expanding our perspectives, expanding our experiences, looking into the future, really understanding things from this big picture level.
Yeah.
Like Mercury might be the small details while I'm planning, and Jupiter is the big picture and the big goals, the dreams, the hopes. So, bringing that in conjunction with the moon, it really brings our emotional and our sense of security into leaning into understanding the bigger picture as well. So, right now, it's very easy to feel really anxious and
Yeah.
really restricted with how we're feeling. And this conjunction to Jupiter allows us to, like you said, just have a greater understanding of it all. And it doesn't mean that everything's going to fall into place and everything's going to make total sense, but
Yeah.
it may just open the door a little bit so we can look out and just see a little bit of like, okay, you know what? I don't have full control of the situation, but I might understand what could happen next or what I can do in this moment or at least just feel an inch more secure with what's
Yeah.
going on. I do want to mention that so Jupiter moved into Cancer, I think on
Ninth,
the
June 9th.
9th,
Hmm.
right? June 9th. Um, and pretty much right off the bat, it started forming a square with both Saturn and Neptune.
Yep.
And it did this for a couple weeks before. It'll do this a couple weeks after. So this new moon is going to be doing the same thing. So all of these things are happening at the same time. And with a square to both Neptune and Saturn, and when we bring the moon into it, this is really going to bring tension between our emotional security, our sense of responsibility, and our anxiety.
Yep.
Because Neptune rules anxiety, right? So, first of all, if you've been feeling super anxious, super restricted with our ability to grow, congratulations, like Raquel says, you are totally feeling the astrology. So I say that to just, not so you can be like, okay, I don't need to worry about it, it'll pass. But instead, you cannot point the finger at yourself and be like, what am I doing wrong? Oh, I suck. I can't do things right. But instead, you can look at it through this lens of like, okay, what are the things I want for the future? What are the ways I want to grow? And how am I confused about that? And where do I feel like my sense of responsibility is restricting me from doing that? And how can I put all those things together to then create an idea of what I can do with what I have right now? Because
Mm.
sometimes Jupiter puts us a little too far into the future, especially with Neptune, bringing that sense of like anything's possible.
And
But
also, what's
Saturn,
real?
right? But Saturn is here to be like, I'll tell you what's real.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's when Saturn forms a square with any planet, it's a bit of a reality check.
Okay.
And with Jupiter,
I love this, but I heard something really interesting recently about Saturn that I found really fascinating, which is
tell me.
that like we always talk about Saturn being like reality and
Mhm.
limits. But what if Saturn actually isn't reality? Because Saturn is the reality that we as humans have put on things. So what if that's actually the illusion? Like the limits that we've put on ourselves are actually the illusion. Because
Interesting.
I know, I'm like, my
That's
mind
a
is
mind
blown.
trip.
Yeah. Because we talk
I
about it as being
mean,
like, this is the reality, but this is the reality we've created. It's not the reality of nature. So many of these things we consider Saturn limitations are completely made up by humans. It's not like nature creating those limits for us. You see what I mean?
I do see what you mean. My argument for that is that astrology is created by humans,
True, true. Good
and
point.
therefore it's an interpretation of human interactions and human behavior. And so
Yeah,
that's where I would bring it back to what humans create.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, that's kind of whether it's true or not is not really the point. It's what we are limiting ourselves to be doing because we're doing it to ourselves or because others are doing it onto us.
Yeah.
So
But
that's something I'm going to think about though,
yeah,
because that
and
kind of flipped it on its head a bit, didn't it?
exactly. And that's also part of the theme of this lunation, which
Hmm.
is like open yourself to new perspectives, new perceptions, new ways of looking at something old, even, you know?
And I mean, that's also perfect with the Neptune and Saturn conjunction.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's going to be happening for now into next year, and like it's a long cycle. So I
Yeah.
love that this came up now.
Yeah.
It really is like, hello, what is real, what is not? That's what this whole cycle is about. And then to,
OMG. That is
yeah,
so alive in the collective right now, too.
right, girl.
Like everyone is just believing narratives, and it's like, how about we let go of the narratives and just get to the truth? That would be awesome.
Right. And then it goes back into, well, what is truth?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that, again, I think that there's you got to be able to quantify aspects of truth sometimes. I think there's always a difference between, and we talked about this like years ago here too as well. There's a difference between little t truth, personal truths, right? And then there's capital T truth, which are more like universal truths,
Hmm.
like things that we have to be able to have certain shared like facts to function as a society.
True. What would be like, do you have one at the top of your mind of like a capital T truth?
The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. The
Okay.
world is not flat.
Right.
That would
Okay.
be a capital T truth to me. I think some people push against that, but that to me is a pretty capital T
Right.
truth.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm with
like
you
that.
on that for the records.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
Like water flows down. Like those kind of like how the water cycle works, like
Right.
how that would be
Okay.
like capital T truth.
I'm with it.
Science,
I'm with it.
nature. Yeah.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
think it's just nice to sometimes hear examples so that we can think
Yeah.
what this all means. Yeah.
Well, especially in the world we're living in right now, it's so interesting to me that like here we are at this day and age where we have all the information we could possibly know at the touch of our fingers, and yet people are believing the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life.
Right? All the information we can know whether it's true or not.
Right. And like then our critical thinking skills go like out the window. So, yeah. Anyway.
So
Anyway.
one more piece of astrology I do want to bring up though. We talked about the conjunction to Jupiter, which is here to expand our horizons. There is that
Yeah.
square with Neptune and Saturn, which can have us feeling some clash between our emotional security, our sense of responsibility, our anxiety, what's true, what's not. It's very easy to also get emotionally overwhelmed
Hmm.
with this kind of energy, but I say all that to be surrounded because it makes a supportive connection with Mars, which has just recently moved into the sign of Virgo.
Mm.
Okay, we've been feeling this Mars and Cancer Leo energy for way too freaking long,
Way too long.
way too long, right? So now we get some fresh Mars energy, and Mars rules the way we assert ourselves, our motivations, our desires, the way we handle conflict. And with Leo, it was in fire, right? We were kind of go, things were hot when it was in Cancer. We were charged by our emotions. When it's in Leo, we're kind of charged by our ego a little bit and the way we're performing.
Yeah.
And in Virgo, the ego kind of takes a step to the side. And Virgo is ruled by Mercury, which is all about our mind and being critical and being analytical and looking at the little details and taking pragmatic action. So we have this expansive energy. There is some confusion and restriction, but with this support coming in from Mars, it can help us start to take, like I mentioned before, even the tiniest little baby step towards what's next right here, right now.
Yeah.
So I love that coming in. Just to kind of give some support and some motivation to do something about it. Anywhere where there's been some disorganization in your life, it may come to the point of like, I can't handle this anymore. I need to do something about this. I'm going to get this organized. I'm going to get this neatly packaged so that at least, we can feel like, okay, I have a little bit of control in this small segment, and that can make a whole world of a difference.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
literally why I clean and organize all the time. Got control issues, but I digress. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always excited for the astrology,
Yeah.
but I do like these two connections with Mars and Jupiter coming in to bring some support.
Yeah. This new moon does feel like and I wish I could say it feels like we were not going to be intense. No, the intensity's still there, no doubt. And I think it's going to be honestly, I feel like I don't feel it waning, honestly.
No.
Um,
I mean, with Jupiter,
yeah.
it expands things and it
Yeah.
expands anything it touches, which means our emotions are going to be bigger. I know it
Yeah.
brings optimism and generosity, but it also brings
It just brings
bigness.
expansion. Yeah, it just expands and we get
Yeah.
to choose what we focus on. That's we get to choose what we're expanding, right? Um, yeah, so it just with this new moon it feels again like as I was saying it doesn't feel like it's going to be super calm, but it does feel like it's going to be support as you said supportive because it's going to give us a greater sense of meaning. It's going to give us a greater sense of purpose,
Yeah.
a greater sense of just not even so much like why all this is happening because again we won't always know the answers of this, but just a sense of like there is a purpose behind this. It's not just chaos. And yes, we can look at that in terms of like the larger what's happening in the larger world, but even in your own personal life, right? Like whatever challenges you might be experiencing in your own personal life, this lunation comes in to offer you this opportunity to see these challenges not just as challenges but as invitations, invitations for miracles to come in, invitations for you to get clearer on your own desires.
And also
Invitation. Yeah.
just trust without knowing necessarily, or like, there might be some tension with your spiritual beliefs with that square with Neptune, but the change from that is to fall into a space of trusting that there
Yeah.
is a greater purpose, whether you know it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So, doing a little guided visual meditation where you even imagine yourself, soaring like a hawk with a higher view of everything that's happening could be a great way to work with the energies of this particular new moon.
Love that.
Yeah. So if you want to work more with this new moon, if you're looking for journal prompts, ways to work with the moon, circling up, please join us over in the Intuitive Moon community where we have horoscopes for you for this lunation. We have ways for you to work with this moon, journal prompts, and of course, we circle up for every new moon and full moon, and we will be circling up for the Cancer new moon on the 26th, I believe, which is Thursday, the 26th of June. You can find all of that linked below. Thank you guys so much for being here today. For more on this Cancer new moon, you can also just check out the moon blog, also linked below. And we'll see you in a few weeks for what will it be? We had Scorpio, so it'll be
Full
no, we just
moon
had
in
Sagittarius, Capricorn.
Capricorn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, Cancer, Capricorn, I knew that. I don't know. I shouldn't have had to think that hard for that, but I did.
Oh, already good. We talked about a lot of signs in one day.
Yes, we did. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, friends. We'll see you again soon. Happy new moon. Bye.
Bye.